Well, g'day viewers. My name's Matt and I'm from MV Fishing Oz. I've had a few questions asked of me of late around the kind of knots I use, and especially my braid to fluorocarbon leader knot. So I figured I would put together a quick little tutorial, little tech tips on how to tie a double uni knot, which is used to join your braid mainline to your fluorocarbon leader. Just for this example, I'm using slightly heavier braid and also a slightly heavier leader, just so it's a little bit easier to see, because obviously with GoPros and thin main lines, it's very hard to focus. So what we want to start with, you've got your fluorocarbon leader, you've got your braid main line. What you want to do is you want to overlap your two lines in opposite directions. So you're going to lay out your two lengths in opposite directions there, so you see how that works. So you've got your braid on the top, your fluorocarbon on the bottom. It doesn't really matter which line you start with to commence the double uni knot, but what you want to make sure is that you've got sufficient line to work with. So don't shortcut yourself, always allow a decent overlap. So what you want to do is you want to pinch with your left hand. I like to start with my left hand. Pinch with your thumb and forefinger the two lines together. So now you've got this loose tail, and then you've got your braid and your fluorocarbon parallel to each other. What you're wanting to do then is you want to create, with your braid line, a loop. So you'll bring that around and you'll form that little loop there, and then you'll put that in your thumb and forefinger. You'll pinch it. You got your fluorocarbon leader there, you got your braid, you got your loop. What you're then going to do is start to wrap this tail end, this tag end, around through the loop and around the braid and the leader itself. I like to do this around 7 times. Let's start. So you'll go around 1, 2, and you can hopefully see that there. It's a little bit hard to focus, but you get the idea. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, don't tighten it yet. Critical part of tying a strong knot is that you lubricate it. So you want to make sure that you never pull a knot while it's dry, because you can cause a friction burn to occur on your carbon lead, your fluorocarbon leader, or your braid. So I'll just moisten it. Just use a bit of spit. Okay. So then you will begin to pull the braid tag end that you've just wrapped around through the loop, holding. You'll pinch the thumb and forefinger on your braid and your fluorocarbon leader, and you'll pull that knot. You can see it gathering up there until that's nice and tight. So I'll just see if I can get that focused on there. So you see that little knot. It's a bit hard to see, but you'll see it when you start to tie it. So it's nice and pulled up tight. Okay, the next step is you're going to repeat the same technique, this time on your fluorocarbon leader. Now I've got the luxury, I've got 2 spools of line here to work with, so I can just switch them around. But when you're out in the kayak or out in the boat or on the beach, it's going to be a little bit more tricky. So it pays. Get yourself a cheap spool of fluorocarbon leader. Do what I did and see if you can crowdsource or have someone donate some braid that they don't want to use anymore, and just practice tying your knots. Okay, so we're ready to do the fluorocarbon leader part of the double uni knot. So you want to pull through a sufficient length, a sufficient tail, so that you've got a little bit to work with. Again, thumb and forefinger on your left hand. This is what I like to do. Place it on top of the knot that you've just formed. Take your fluorocarbon leader, create the same loop that you did with the braid main line. The next step is you're then taking this tag end and you're wrapping it through the loop around the braid at least 7 times. So I like that number. I've always used 7 wraps. You can go 5 wraps, 6 wraps, 7 wraps, 10 wraps. keeping in mind, the more wraps you do, the bigger the knot that you're going to have. But I find 7 wraps is sufficient. Okay, so 1, 2, you see there it's wrapping around the braid and through that loop. 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. Okay, so we've got our wraps around that. Again, never do a dry knot, always moisten it. Okay, this time you're pulling on the fluorocarbon leader tag end, you can see there. Now watch as the knot begins to form. It gathers up. Now with this thicker line, I've just got to use a bit more pressure. It's not what I normally use, pardon the pun. Okay, so you've got your second uni knot of the double uni knot. So we've got our first uni knot, our second uni knot. Now the trick is, again, moisten the whole section of line. Now you're going to grab the fluorocarbon leader at this end. The braid at this end, the fluorocarbon leader at the other end, and then what you're doing is you're drawing these 2 knots together and they will jam together. So keep an eye on those 2 little dots there you can see in the screen. Okay, gently, gently, you're pulling them together and they will jam up against each other just like that, and I'll hopefully give that a bit of focus. And it's nearly impossible, but you get the drift. So that's now jammed up against each other. So now you've formed your double uni knot. It's pulled up nice and tight. This is quite a large knot when you're using heavier braid or heavier fluorocarbon leader. So let me just grab my little scissors and we'll trim him off. So the aim is to trim your tag ends as close as possible to the knot to reduce how difficult it is to go through your runners or your guides on your rod. So getting in nice and close. Okay, make sure you throw your tag ends in the bin, and we'll do the same thing with the braid. So the braids, I find it just a little bit tricky sometimes, but get it down nice and close. Now you might need to put a bit of tension on this end just to hold it. I like to just put the knot in my teeth and trim him off like that. So there we go. Well, that's not the prettiest. My scissors aren't really sharp. I grabbed the wrong scissors, but you get the drift. So that's how you tie a double uni knot. It's an effective knot. It's simple. Get lots of practice before you do it out in the kayak or out in the boat or down the beach, because you don't have the luxury of standing at a workbench like this, and you've usually got wind, waves, and obviously the other elements going on. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.